Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's open forum. I'm glad you all can make it in today. I'm coming to you from our Tampa office on Dale Mabry. It is a rainy day in Tampa. Today we have Paul. I'm going to let Paul start this thing off. We're going to go over the as-is today very carefully and kind of a very basic understanding of the as-is. We're going to go over some things I've seen recently. But today we're going to start off with Paul Massey from Samaritan Group Mortgage is here. He wants to clarify some things we talked about a couple of weeks ago or a month ago now, I guess, and a couple of new things he wants to talk about. So, Paul, welcome.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me as usual. So the first thing that I'll mention is we've got something coming up in the next 26 days. We've got the new Florida budget that's coming out, and there's $100 million allotted for the Hometown Heroes program. So any first-time buyer that's been on the fence, we've had a lot of those. I would get them off the fence now. Last year, the $100 million, it sounds like a lot of money, but it only lasted for 3 months, probably. I think it'll last a little bit longer this year with just current activity, but if we see any reduction in rates, that could change that number too. So I would try to light a fire under people and let them know they probably got 3 months to take advantage. So there are some guideline changes with that. There's some kind of weird ones, but I want to tell you about them. We are going to, every file is going to require tax transcripts from the IRS, which don't happen very quickly. So if you do a contract for 30 days on those, it's completely possible to close within that time frame, but we are dealing with the IRS. So if you do it for 45 days, you might just give yourself that extra breathing room so you're not stressing out and stressing everybody out at the end of the transaction. Any amendment that they've done to their tax returns in the last 6 months makes them completely ineligible for the program. So we will definitely let you know if that's happened, but if they're not pre-approved with us, you 100% want to ask that question because, again, you don't want to waste your time on that program because a lot of those buyers, if they're not getting those funds, they're not going to be able to close. So any amendments in the last 6 months makes them ineligible. Doesn't matter what the amendment is. If they didn't put street on their tax returns and they're at drive or whatever, it doesn't matter. They're not getting a Hometown Heroes loan at that point. Any increase or change in pay requires a 2 months history. Okay, so if somebody just received a bump in salary and now we want to put them at a price point, they have to have been receiving that for a full 60 days for them to be eligible for Hometown Heroes. Okay. And any change in employment, like they change companies, they change industries, whatever, they have to have 6 months in a new role. Okay, so those are major Hometown Heroes changes that just didn't matter before. Okay, same thing. They can still get up to $35,000 for funds. The income limits are pretty high. If you want to know what those are, just reach out to me individually, and I'll share those with you. Even though the program comes out and it's going to be funded on July 1st, typically we can't start submitting applications until after the 4th of July holiday. We're dealing with the government here, guys, so it takes them a few days to get everything updated in the new system. So a lot of people are asking me if they can go under contract now. No, just wait. Just give it a few weeks and wait until it's accurate because nobody's going to underwrite these loans until there's actually funding. Okay, so just get the buyers excited and then we can take it from there and get them approved up front. Okay, so that's one. On the last call, we talked a little bit about our fix and flip program. And then somebody mentioned that the investor that we use might not be doing any funding in the state of Florida. And I said, hey, I'll get back to you on that unless anything recently changed. That is both true, but not true for us. Because we have a platinum relationship with them, we can still write these loans. Not many people can, but we can. I'm going to try to share my screen if you want. If it's disastrous, then I'll just give you the highlights and email it to Ryan afterwards, and you can send it to you guys, just a little flyer on them, okay? Let's see if I can do that. Okay, how'd I do, Ryan? Can you see that okay? Did everybody see that
Yes.
plot? Okay.
Yep.
All right. So obviously, a fix and flip is going to be non-owner occupied, 1 to 4 units, condos, townhomes, and mixed-use properties worked. They will do the fix and flip, like the flip process, for 12 to 24 months with extension options. They will finance 100% of the renovation cost with interest only paid on funds they've drawn. And they can finance up to 90% of the purchase price plus 100% of the renovation cost, not to exceed 75% of the ARV. The ARV is the after renovation value. Okay, so they have to make sure that whatever they're doing to the property is actually adding value to the property, and not just something that's not going to add any value to them. Okay, 640 minimum credit score. Minimum property value 55,000. Please don't give me any of those. We'll do them if we need to, but let's set our sights high on those. 100,000 is the minimum loan amount, so those things kind of contradict one another a little bit. Prepayment penalty, none. Experience, no experience required. So if you have anybody that fits in that criteria or any first-time investors, it works for them too. Just let me know. And I'm going to try to now share the doctor program with you guys as well. Let's see if that updates.
Paul, I have a question, and I know Christina has a question as well, but I want to ask you about this program. That seems like a really good program. What are we looking at for points and rates there?
Rates are going to be in the 10 to 12% range.
And what were points?
Possibly no points in that range, just depending on which rate option we choose.
That's an incredible fix and flip program.
Yeah, it's the best we've seen.
Yeah, that's crazy. As far as LTVs and all that stuff, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Christina, you had a question?
Yeah, I don't know if he said that he's going to address this later. I was just curious, like income limits on the Hometown Heroes.
I will send that to you guys individually. They're not 100% finalized yet. They won't release them until July 1st, but I think last year they were around 105,000, so they were pretty high. So I'll send them out to you individually once they're available.
All right, guys, I'm going to put Paul's contact info in the chat, so you guys can, if you guys want this information from him, you can reach out to him. Tammy in Orlando, you have a question?
No, Christina asked my same question, so I'm good. Income limits was my thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking at last year's right now, guys. Give me a second, see if I can pull it up. And can you guys see the doctor program as well while I'm looking that up?
You can, and guys, if it's too small, I'm getting the option I've never had before to zoom in on it on the bottom right of the shared screen. Are you guys seeing that?
I'm actually trying to make it a little bit bigger.
Can't you either email it to us later as an attachment or something?
Yeah. Hit him up in the chat. Chat. I put his email. If you guys email him, he'll send you whatever you want, or you can Venmo request him, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, I'll accept incoming Venmos. Okay, so the doctor program, 100% financing for the purchase of a new home, up to $1 million loan amount, 95% financing up to $1.5 million loan amount, and 90% financing up to $2 million. No mortgage insurance on those loans. And only, like, let's say it's a husband and wife, only one borrower must meet the professional position requirements. Okay. And we do not count deferred student loan debt for qualifying, which is huge, especially with doctors. So that's a big one as well. Also, I will send this to, I know no one can see this below. I'll try to make it a lot bigger, but there's also some other qualifying professions, attorneys, CPAs, and it shows all the medical professions that are available as well. Okay. So this is, we call it the doctor loan, but it actually works for some other professions as well.
nurse practitioners, physician's assistants. That's a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of people didn't think PAs would be in there, but they totally are. So I did also find the income for 2024. So I'm becoming an expert at this screen sharing business pretty quickly. So let's see.
Hey, you're doing great, Paul.
Yeah, I've kind of slowed it down now. All right, so let me do this. And then let me share this next one with you guys too. Let's see if that pops up. And I'm failing now. Can you guys see that or no?
Black screen.
Blank screen? All right, let me see if these guidelines will pop up now.
So on the doctor loan, they'd still have their closing costs, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll still have closing costs. Let me see if I can do this a different way. Nothing's changed with that. So they can use gift funds for closing costs, but they still exist, of course.
They could ask for closing costs too, right?
Yes. Okay, so there is the income. This was 2024. Like I said, they'll update for 2025. But for Orange County, for example, it was $144,750 for FHA VA. It was more than I thought, right? And then I can definitely send this out to you guys when we do our call in the beginning of July, and let you know what it is for. And the loan limits are $766,550 as well on the far right. Okay. Everybody can see that. All the counties in Central Florida are basically the same. You see Osceola right below Orange is there. And where Mr. Langley is, Hillsborough is a little bit different, barely, right? So I'll let you know once they're finalized for 2025, and we'll go from there. Okay.
Excellent.
Okay.
So, Paul, I have a question.
Sure.
We talked a little bit about off the record. Tammy was asking about a high income individual who doesn't have credit at all because they pay cash for everything.
Yeah.
What if we have a child who is 18, 19 years old, and we want to get them some credit so they can get started on a first-time home buy at some point? I have heard of a program where I don't know what it is. I think it's 4 letters and whatever, but you can get them some credit on, and it's not just like a credit card. It's almost like a loan. You pay it every month, and then but it's not a loan. It's like a reverse loan almost, where you pay $150 every month or something. At the end of 2 years, you have a loan repayment thing, and you get almost all the money back. It actually costs $150 or something.
Yeah, there's a lot of options. So let's just say this. Let's say that I talk to somebody that is, 18, has no credit, right? They can do number one, they can do a secured credit card, which is exactly the same concept. They give like $500, let's call it, right? And then they have a credit line for $500, and they just make the payments on that. Now there is interest with that, but it's very, very minimal, right? And it gives them a trade line just like any other credit. The other thing we do is we ask mom, dad, brother, sister to add them as an authorized user. What's great about that is let's say it's your son, Ryan, right? And he's 18, and you've had this credit card for 14 years, and you add him as an authorized user. He's now going to have that full history of his credit. So he's going to start out of the gate with an amazing credit score because of the history that you've built.
Okay.
Okay. It goes the opposite way too. Sometimes we pull people's credit and we see that they have an authorized user account that's not in good standing, and we can just get them removed from that, and their credit score will go up 70, 80 points overnight. So it goes both ways. What I also do with 18 to 25-year-olds is sometimes we'll have them on the loan as the primary and have their parents as a non-occupant co-borrower. And with that, their parents' income will count towards it. Their parents' credit will count towards it, even if they have no income. That's why I asked Tammy what kind of loan we were looking at, because that's not where my brain went first, right? Where yours did too, apparently. And they can have no credit, they can have no income, and we can still qualify them for a mortgage at that point.
Yeah, I did ask him if his dad would sign for him. He's like, no, my dad would not sign for any of his kids. For non-occupying co-borrower, same thing, yeah.
Yeah, so that's an option for conventional financing, which would be a little bit lower, obviously. What else did I want to go over with you guys? Oh, we're still doing any listings that you guys have that aren't moving. Like, let's work together on those. We can offer a 1% lender credit if we close with them, combined with anything you or the seller want to do, and we can package that creatively in a dollar figure or maybe a rate buy down or whatever. Ask me about that offline, because we have a lot of people with a lot of listings right now that aren't moving very fast. Okay. Same thing if you are, obviously, most of us, our past lives were different and we weren't in real estate. So anything you want to do to offer any profession that you may have previously been in or that you just have connections with, we have affinity flyers where if they work for Orange County School Board, for example, we have one with Universal Studios right now, where if they're an employee of that company, we will give them a $2,500 credit if they work with us. So if you have any ends with that and you want to package it up with what we can do, maybe we can offer them $5,000 or whatever the case may be. So you can essentially be the preferred perk on their employee benefits for relationships they have. So, and we've got some pretty big employers here in Central Florida, guys. So that could be a company of 12 people or 12,000 people, but it's certainly something to check into, especially now.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Paul? We got a thumbs up. We got any other questions for Paul, guys? All right. So Paul's information is in. I put his email in the chat. Go ahead and take note of that if you're interested in anything that he just brought up. I'm sure that you are, especially those. I like those loan limit things that you brought up. He can send you those as well. Please just hit him up for that. And Paul, thank you for coming in today, bud.
Thank you. And I'll email you later, Tammy. Okay.
Awesome. Appreciate
Thanks,
you.
guys. Have a good day.
All right, FRI peeps. Paul's social media right after he left. He is Samaritan Group. I don't know his social media off. His name's Paul Massey, and he's Samaritan Group. So you can certainly find him. Or email him and he'll give you all about it. But Anne-Marie Montesano is his business development director, and I know she's all over social media. They will do, guys, they do brokers opens, open houses. They do all that stuff with you as well, like lenders. Okay, so I'm going to go over a little bit of what we have seen on the as is recently. We are having some difficulties with that, apparently. Some of us, including some of the more basic things. I also want to go over the referral agreement with you, and I'm going to pull that up as well. And we did this recently, and I had one yesterday, and you guys are going to be so excited because this agent got lucky. I'm going to pull that up right now. Let me find it. Office forms. Do you guys have any questions before we get started? Yes, Carolina.
You're gonna talk about, what about referral agreement from out of town? I got a call from one of the agents. I referred a customer from Massachusetts, and they're asking, where do they send the fee?
Where do they send the fee? They're sending you a fee? Or
Yeah,
you're sending them a fee? So you referred somebody to Massachusetts,
yeah,
and they're asking where to send the fee. You have a
Yeah.
referral agreement?
a referral fee.
Well, that's kind of a big deal. You should have a referral agreement signed with them already, right?
I do, but
Okay,
they
well,
use a certain program, and I got that signed by their broker, and he just reached out yesterday and said, I forgot the program that he said, but it's some type of program that they send you the funds to Florida Realty Investments. I don't know, but you guys use Wire, correct?
We use wire. We can take a wire, yes,
Okay. Or checks.
or checks. But they send it to Florida Realty Investments. They're going to need our W-9, which you can find on Paperless
Yeah.
Pipeline under the reference tab. You'll find the W-9.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've already sent that to them, but they'll send it to our office on Technological Avenue. Our
Okay. Okay. That's
and Solange will process it for you and do it. Now you have to put it on Paperless Pipeline.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
I
you
didn't
have to
do that.
open a thing. Use the address. Open a transaction, and one of the pull down options is referral. And so
okay.
you'll
I'll
upload
add
your
that.
referral agreement and any other information that you have on it. If you did get a closing statement or not, whatever, that's fine. But she pretty much just needs a referral agreement. You don't always get the closing statement, so she pretty much just needs a referral agreement, and you're all set.
Okay.
Okay, so here we go, guys. Referral agreement. Broker A. In this case, let's do this. Broker A was Carolina Estevez, Florida Realty Investments. Okay, refers whatever the person's name was to Massachusetts Realty, whoever that is, right? And then she went down here. It's almost never a blank amount, but you check one of these boxes, either the blank amount or which it's almost never that, but it can be. Gross purchase price of any property. So you would put a percentage, which you wouldn't really do here. Be careful not to use this one because you don't want to do 25% of the gross purchase price. Obviously, that doesn't make sense. You get 25% of their commission. So that's typically what you would do is 25%. Are you stuck with 25%? No, that's the industry standard. 25% of the full commission received by broker B on any real estate transaction involving the prospect. If you are the referring agent, okay, I'm sorry. Yes, this was the right one. So Carolina, she could click this one and do 25% of that. And that would be great because when she sent, let's say she sent Joe Smith, everything Joe Smith does with that broker in Massachusetts, she will get 25% of if she did this. Okay. Or 25% of the listing commission received by broker B, or 25% of the selling commission received by broker B. So Carolina should try to do one of these, but if someone sends you one of those, be sure to do this or this, whatever. If they're selling you did you send a seller or a buyer, Carolina?
I sent listing to
A
them.
list.
And
And that they're going to buy up there as well?
I have them. I already found them a house here in Claremont. So they're my customers, but they
Okay.
were selling their house in Massachusetts. So I referred them to someone I know in Massachusetts. They listed their house. They got it under contract. They're selling it. And I'm also closing on a house here with
Okay,
my
but you're-
customer.
But they're done with their business in Massachusetts after they sell that house. They're done. They're never doing more business in Massachusetts.
Correct.
Okay, so do 25% of the listing commission is what you should have done, received by broker B, because they listed with her.
I
Okay.
did the second one, 25% of the full commission received by
Perfect.
broker B on any real estate transaction involving.
I love it. That's great.
Yeah,
So
that's
you did,
what I
you did a
did.
good one. Now, I will tell you what happened yesterday. So you could have done that one or the listing one. They're probably not going to do any more business up there, but that's fine. Okay. Here's what happened yesterday. And I don't know if Patricia's in here or not, but she someone referred someone to her. So she was broker B. She was a receiving agent. Okay. She took their listing. She sold it to someone who either came to an open house or came off the sign. She got both sides. Okay. She's
Mhm.
getting both sides of this deal. And she said, do I owe, without even looking at their agreement, she asked me, she emailed me to say, do I owe them 25% of both sides or just the listing side? And I said, I don't know. It depends on what your agreement says. So fortunately, because she didn't really know, she got lucky. They had sent her the 25% of listing commission. So she gets to keep the entire amount of the buying side and only pays them 25% of the 3% listing. Okay. But she got lucky on that because she would owe them both if they had gotten both. Okay. So there you go. if they had did that other one, which she didn't even pay attention to. You know, a lot of times we receive these things and we're so excited to get a referral that we don't really read anything. You know, we just say, oh, 25%, that's fair. And then we sign it. So she got very lucky, but it worked out well for her because someone did 25% of the listing commission. If that agent had done 25% of the full commission, Patricia still would have signed it but would have owed them an extra, you know, $2,500 or whatever. That will be the other side of that. If it's a $300,000 house, it's going to be $2,250, right? If it's a $600,000 house, she just saved herself $5,000 by not doing that. Okay. So she got lucky, but that's the case. So good for her. But that's why I wanted to go over this. This just happened last night. And I just wanted to go over this with you guys, just to remind you, pay attention to these forms. They mean a lot. When you're the one sending it, you might as well do this, especially a listing or even a buyer. If it's somebody buying, because they might buy and sell something else up there in the next couple of months or whatever, if they're moving to another state or whatever. All right. So there you go. That's all I wanted to talk about the referral agreement. Any questions on the referral agreement before we go into the listing agreement or the as is? Tammy.
So, I mean, if they did future business, you really wouldn't know, you know, I mean, that you'd have to just trust the person you referred to be honest with you, because as time goes on.
Not if they're your friends or something, you're going to be in contact with them. I mean, I hope you would check up with them after anyway and say, hey, how'd it go with Carolina and blah, 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 right?
But the following year, you know, if you didn't talk to them.
If they don't, yeah. If you don't follow up, then it's lost. But certainly a situation where, you know, they get both sides of the deal, whatever, you can talk to the client throughout it. A lot of times it's I mean, let's be honest, a lot of times it's friends or family or, you know, something like that. Sometimes it's a lead you got and they said, oh, well, we're going to probably buy and you know, you talk to them for a couple of weeks, or we're probably going to buy in Jacksonville instead of Orlando. Well, now let me, you don't just say, oh, well, all right, well, good luck. Say, oh, I can find you somebody great in Jacksonville. In fact, we have people in Jacksonville, and we do. But even if our people in Jacksonville can't do it, then you'll find them somebody from, you know, Google agents up there until somebody wants to give you 25 or 30%. And you can negotiate for more. You know, if I tell you guys this from time to time, not every referral, just like not every lead is created equal, not every referral is created equal either. If it's $1 million referral, or it's a listing, or it's your best friend who's going to do whatever you tell them and use whoever you tell them, and they don't really have to work hard to get the deal, or if it's, you know, if it's my brother who's going to buy $1.5 million house in Fort Lauderdale, I can get a little more than 25%. That's better than 25% if I say my brother's going to work with whoever I send him to, right? And I'm going to send him to you. I want 35%, you know, for $1.5 million house, right? Or if it's a listing on a $1 million house or whatever, I can get more than that. But if I tell you, look, this is a guy who was commenting on my Facebook post and his name is Joe Smith, and, you know, good luck getting him, but here it is. I might say, well, that's only worth 20%, dude. I'm not, you know, that's not a great lead. A guy who might be buying a house sometime in the next 2 years. So not all leads are created equal. So just kind of keep that in mind as well. All right, here we go. Let's talk about the as is. This is going to be difficult for me. Normally when I talk to you guys, I have a couple of screens open and I can do this a little bit better, but I have you guys minimized in the corner here and I'm going over this. So if you go ahead and speak up if you have a question or comment. And if you can, those of you who I can see, like Carolina and Tammy, please nod along if I have questions, so I can see that you're seeing what I'm saying. Okay, the as is. The parties, we haven't had a problem with that. The legal descriptions, we haven't had a problem with that. Here's where we get a little bit of a problem, guys. Write in the washers and dryers if there are washers and dryers. Okay, washer and dryer if that's what you want. Okay, needs to be on the contract. I don't care if it's in the MLS. Contract overrides the MLS. You can promise them the moon and the stars in the MLS, but if it's not in the contract, it does not exist. Okay, the MLS is not a real thing. It's an advertisement. Go ahead, Ann. I can see raised hands. So go ahead, Ann.
I normally put like a per MLS over there. Is it okay? And I attach the MLS with signature.
Yeah. I'm okay with that. Just put C attached MLS sheet. Okay. And say, you know, everything you put in here as per the MLS, C attached MLS sheet, and you put it as an attachment. I'm okay with that. I'd rather just say washer and dryer. You know, if it everything, so many things are that are on here, like window treatments and stuff like that, ceiling fans. That's the kind of garage door openers. Those the things that are assumed to go with the house, right? There are some things that are not attached, like garage door openers, that go with the house. You know, keys. You shouldn't have to put keys in here, but they're not attached, but they do go with the house. That's kind of stuff is common sense, but there you go. And the following items are excluded. If you are the seller and you know that the seller the listing agent, you know the seller wants to take stuff with them, this is where you write that stuff. This is where you put window treatments. Even though it's in the paragraph above that it's going, this means it's not going. Okay. Obviously excluded. You can't do anything about the boilerplate language up here. But if you write it here, you don't have to go exit out up here. It's obviously not going. Okay. All right. All of your escrow stuff, you guys aren't having a hard time with that. This, guys, be careful if you're selling an investment property with a tenant. If you're selling an investment property with a tenant, this needs to be checked. This is very important. I've seen you guys get burned on this before. And the buyer will use it, if they're savvy, will use it to do whatever they want with you, but because they have you over the barrel here. Your place is supposed to be broom swept, meaning definitely not tenants, definitely not furniture, definitely not anything. If it's going to be different than that, then you need to mark it here. Okay. Buyer may assign and thereby be released. Guys, if you get these contracts where the buyer may assign and thereby be released, it is probably a flipper. So watch out for that. That is what that, when I say flipper, flipping the contract, a wholesaler. All right. If your intention is to wholesale, that's the one you want to do. If your intention is to not wholesale, to buy it for someone, you may do that. I would put may assign and not be released as the buyer's agent. I would put that in there. There is no, and the reason for that is, how many times do you guys have to change the buyer because there is somebody else needs to sign, they need a co-borrower, they need this, they need that. The husband and wife are both on this contract, but the husband has to be taken off for the loan to go through, or the wife has to, or they have to add, mom or dad for their income or whatever it is. That way you don't have to get the seller's permission. And if the seller wants to get out of the deal later or wants to negotiate a point later on, they can use this to do that. They can say, oh, you want to change your buyer, the names? Well, I'm going to need you to go hard with that $5,000 deposit. You need to release that or whatever, they can make up whatever. Or we're not going to fix the pool leak now, if that's what you want. They can use it to negotiate. When in reality, all you're doing is changing the name. You're not changing anything. You're not tricking anybody, and you're not being released from liability. On the selling side, if you want to do that, if the seller says, no, I got to have that, then that's what you do. But you're okay with this one. Your seller is perfectly fine with this one unless they want to negotiate something else. But you can use it as a point of negotiation also. I like it as the buyer because that's one thing that they get to negotiate. The agent gets to prove their worth by saying, oh, no, by Mr. Seller, we shouldn't take that. Okay, whatever. Right? It's no big deal. Did somebody raise their hand? I think they put it down, but if somebody raises their hand and needs something, let me know.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
We have a situation, I'm not there yet, it's like in a couple of weeks now, but the due diligence period is 60 days, but the deposit is only refundable for the first 30 days of the contract. So
How is that? Is that
because
written separately?
Excuse me?
Is that written separately in the additional terms?
Yes.
Well, which side are you on? Please tell me you're on the seller side.
Yes, I am.
Good.
That's why I did it. I didn't want to take it off market for 60 days and lose potential prospects for him to do due diligence. And I'm literally doing now while I'm in this meeting. Excuse me.
The whole point of the due diligence period is if I'm on the buyer side, the whole point of that is to not risk my money until I know I can use it, which if I put 60 days, then I know I need 60 days probably. That's malpractice by the buyer's agent.
They're not represented.
Okay. And you have a non-rep with them?
No, I just have a listing agreement with the seller.
Okay, well, you're considered to be this is going to be a problem for you because you're considered to be a transaction broker automatically. So you need a non-rep with them.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
you put them in a bit of a bind if this does become an issue. And you're going to be the one in a sling, not the seller or the buyer. So if the buyer goes and gets an attorney and to fight over this, you're probably, I'm not an attorney, you're probably going to be in a little bit of hot water.
Even if they signed in the terms of and conditions that it becomes non-refundable on day 31.
Yes.
Now they're developers. They don't want to be represented, but they actually
Okay.
turned in somebody else's transaction desk document.
Okay, well,
with the name.
this is a commercial contract. So it's a vacant land contract, and they have assets well over $1 million. They're considered to be sophisticated.
Right.
Like we all learned in our licensing class. So you'll probably be fine.
That's what I was thinking now. But if I release the escrow to the seller, I don't want to do the cancellation form. Is there another form to release escrow?
Yeah, they can agree. They can just agree in writing to do it if it's part of the contract. If it's part of the contract and they're releasing the deposit, yes. It doesn't.
Okay.
A lot of deposit releases in commercial deals and vacant land deals are not a cancellation. It's you release it. So
Right.
perfect. As long as they have an addendum that says that, or if it's in the writing, the title company is going to want a separate agreement. Probably.
Yeah. No,
Maybe.
I know what you're saying. If it was somebody who wasn't in the industry, I would have had either a BBA and represented them
Okay.
specifically, like I tried. But yeah, okay.
You're good. They're
Thanks.
sophisticated. They're considered to be sophisticated buyers.
Yes, they are. They've bought other property in the past and sold it.
Well, but it's all about their assets, which I'm sure are over $1 million or $2 million, whatever they need to be. So you're fine. But let's just hope it doesn't come to that. I hope they close, of course. So here we go. Financing. This is what we want to see. The cash transaction, obviously. You guys aren't having too much problem with this, but there's a little bit of issue over the appraisal thing. Guys, make sure they do their appraisal within the first 30 days write it into the contract, do whatever you need to do. Make sure they do their appraisal and the results are in before the end of the loan approval period. If you guys need to add that to contracts, I don't mind at all. I'm talking about as the listing agent. Do it. As the buyer's agent, make sure they get it done during that time. There is a bit of misunderstanding about the timing of this. It's specifically it's worded very strangely. Let's look at this. If buyer fails a timely buyer shall be timely. There's something in here about the appraisal, and I'm having a hard time seeing it because I've got this in the corner. But here it is. If buyer has timely provided either written notice provided for seller in paragraph 8B above, and buyer thereafter fails to close this contract, deposit shall be paid to seller unless failure to close. We're talking about what to do with the deposit now if they can't close at the last minute. Failure to close is due to 1, seller's default or inability to satisfy other contingencies of this contract, or 2, property related. Sorry, I'm having a hard time reading that because of the things on my screen. Conditions for approval, specifically excluding the appraisal valuation, have not been met unless such conditions are waived by other provisions of this contract, in which event the buyer shall be refunded the deposit, thereby releasing buyer and seller from all further obligations under this contract. So I can read it better in here. So make sure the appraisal is done during the loan approval period so you don't have this argument. This has been a few arguments. A few lawyers have gone over this. It's not really 100% clear. Let's do that. Okay. Now the appraisal is part of loan approval. So if the appraisal did not come back, so here's how loan approval works, guys. If anything changes from what was on the pre-approval, then they don't have to close. They can get out for the loan approval. It's very easy for buyers to get out on loan approval period. Okay. If it appraises, I don't care if this property is $1.1 million and it appraises at $1,095,000, only 5,000 difference on $1.1 million. The buyer can still get out because of that for a loan approval. Okay, even if they would still be approved, you have changed the terms of the loan, which I originally agreed to. Okay, that is not full loan approval of what we did. If the interest rate goes up by 0.0125 or whatever happens, okay, anything that changes. If now I have to do 20% down instead of 15% down, if I have to go from, I can't do FHA now, I have to do conventional, and I have to go from 3.5% down to 5% down, that changes my loan. Okay. So if it changes by $1,000 of what the appraised value is, comes in $1,000 low, that changes my loan. Okay. If you, as the seller, change my closing date, that changes my loan, my prepaids, my tax prorations. It changes everything because you want to move out 2 weeks later and you want to change it, you want to delay. That changes everything for me, theoretically, right? Most buyers won't care, whatever. If they agree to it, they agree to it. But if your seller needs to move out 2 weeks later because they can't move into their new house for 2 more weeks, that changes the buyer's loan. It might even change their rate lock. It might change whatever, right? So it changes their circumstances. They can get out. Okay. Now you can propose that as the seller, and they can say no. They can't say yes and then say, oh, well, that changes everything. They can say no. All right. They can't get out just because you asked. If they agree to it, they agree to it. They can't agree to it and then say later. We've seen all of these scenarios. Oh yeah, my people agreed to it, but now they want out because it changed their loan. They lost their rate lock. Well, they shouldn't have agreed to it then. They can't do that. So if they agree to it, they agree to it. But those are things that the seller changes, and the buyer can't agree to those things and then try to get out for loan approval. All right. So there's certain things like that I've seen you guys come to me with. You guys have been on the good side and bad side of pretty much all of these scenarios. And sometimes it's just weird situations that put you guys there, but you need to know that. But definitely, I had someone ask me this week about appraisals. So the buyer comes back at something. Can the seller get out of the deal because the buyer asked them? Seller can't get out because it appraised low. The buyer still has the opportunity to make up the difference with cash. Okay. That's between them and their lender. As long as they show up on closing day with the right amount of money, it doesn't matter if it appraised low, it doesn't matter if it appraised high. It doesn't matter. If it's up to the buyer. Now, can the buyer get out because it appraised low? Yes. Can the buyer ask the seller to drop the price? Absolutely, they can ask. Does the seller have to? Absolutely not. They can agree on any price in between, or the seller doesn't have to budge at all. Okay. The seller has a contract price. If the buyer can't perform, the buyer can cancel, but they get their deposit back because that does change the loan approval. Changes my loan. Makes me come up with more cash. If it's $10 extra I have to come up with, that changed my loan and I can get out if I want to. All right. So just keep that in mind. If I get one other thing, the HOA. So this is an interesting thing. So let's say your HOA changes every January 1st. Most of them do, right? That's their fiscal year, typically goes with the calendar year. So Tammy listed this property and I brought the buyer. And Tammy says on the listing that my HOA is $500 a quarter. All right. But she listed the property in November. I didn't put my contract in until January. She hadn't updated the thing yet. Maybe I even put it under contract in December when it was $500 a quarter. But it went up in January to $575 a quarter. So that changes my loan. That changes my whole thing. And can I get out during loan approval period because of that? Yes. And it's not Tammy's fault. Tammy did what was true at the time, but it changed on January 1st. So things change. My job can obviously, my job can change. I can get a pay cut at my job. Maybe I'm a contract guy. My contract runs out. Or whatever. I can get fired, I can get demoted, I can get whatever changes my finances, and I can get out for that. Those are all legitimate reasons, no matter how small they are. Okay. So things change, the taxes come out, the new taxes come out, and they're a lot higher. Whatever. Those are legitimate reasons that I can't afford this house anymore. I'm not, even if I can't afford it, I'm not comfortable with it, and it's not the agreement that we agreed to. All right. Any questions on that?
I'd like to share something with you.
Please.
Under financing, this is a cash transaction with no financing contingency.
Yes.
I'm dealing, we close on Monday, but because it's a cash transaction, this transaction was also, I included the contingency, meaning we accepted a contract for the sale of her house, and then we put in an offer on another house, but my client can't close unless she receives the cash from the house that she sold. So when we submitted the as is to purchase, I did include the contingency rider. Would I have to erase or cross out financing A, cross out with no financing contingency?
No. You did it perfectly fine. It's a cash transaction, no financing contingency, because the financing contingency is all this stuff here. So you have a separate contingency, which is sale of buyer's property.
Correct.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. That's that you can add any contingency you want. You could have even, crazy enough, added an appraisal contingency. And I've seen you guys some people want to get out of cash deals because the appraisal came in low. They're just making sure they didn't make a bad deal, I guess. So they feel better. But appraisal doesn't matter on a cash transaction because it's not part of the financing contingency. But I've seen people do that. Any contingency you add here is perfectly fine. You can do they can sell it with a post-closing occupancy contingency that we're going to come up with I don't know if you know that rider well, but all it says we're going to come up with a post-closing deal where I get to stay an extra 2 weeks or an extra week or an extra month or whatever. It's all any contingency can be added. Any rider can be added. So the one sale of buyer's property, I still get my deposit back if my property doesn't sell. That's what that rider says, and that's what it is. Okay. Now, if I say, and this happens a lot, right? This actual thing happens a lot. A lot of people sell their houses. They lived in Michigan for the last 30 years. They bought their house in Michigan for $100,000 and sold it for $400,000, right? And they're moving to Florida and they're buying a house cash. But they have this contingency to sell their house in Michigan, whatever. The house in Michigan gets, the closing gets delayed for 2 weeks for financing or whatever, right? And so I have to go to the seller of this property now because I do have a sale of buyer's property contingency. And I go to them and say, can you guys hold off for 2 weeks? I mean, I can't close for 2 weeks or I have to cancel and get my deposit back. Now I've already spent money on an inspection, not an appraisal, but an inspection. I've spent all my money deciding, getting all my stuff moved to Florida. I'm ready to go. Please extend me for 2 weeks. And they can negotiate for whatever they want in that. They can say, yeah, but I want you to, I'll delay it 2 weeks, but I want you to release your deposit. And then you're like, okay. I mean, you decide whether or not to do that or to start all over. So that's just business. But yes, that contingency to sell the buyer's property is absolutely legitimate. And if they can't come to some agreement on that, if it doesn't close on time, whatever, then you can negotiate with the seller of that property. Okay.
Okay.
So you did a good job. You did exactly what you should have done. That's exactly the paperwork you should have used, was a sale of buyer's property. And that's a legitimate contingency. Doesn't matter what this says. You guys know that addenda override the contract, right? Anything that's in an addendum, just like the purchase price, you change it, you do an addendum, it overrides this. Okay. Anything you put in additional terms overrides stuff too, right?
I've got another question.
Yes.
If I submit an offer for conventional and find out along the line that my buyer, his financing ability changed, and although it was on his pre-approval from a lender, they don't want to do conventional and they want to change to another form of VA or FHA.
Mm-hmm.
How does that affect the offer that we accepted? Do I have to get that changed?
The buyer can get the seller can get out. I didn't agree to that. I want out. Here's your deposit back. Or you can get the seller to agree to it. I see this all the time because you've got to sign an FHA. Obviously, they've got to sign the FHA thing. But now, as a seller, FHA has more things that I've got to do. I can't just give you a concession for repairs, I've got to make a lot of repairs. I've got to make all the general repairs, not cosmetic, but general repairs I have to make. There are different things with FHA. You guys know the restrictions with FHA, and a lot of sellers and a lot of listing agents will tell their sellers it's not quite as good as a conventional. And the reason is it just gives you less flexibility to do stuff like that. So FHA and VA have different requirements. You have to have the seller sign the addendum for it, and the seller can refuse. You've changed the terms of the contract. We want out. They can't keep your deposit or anything. They have to give your deposit back. Thanks for coming out, and here's your deposit back, release and cancellation. Now, I've also had people change from conventional to cash. That is none of the seller's business. You do not have to change the contract. You don't need an addendum for that. You show up on closing date with that money. That's perfectly fine. You do not have to change that. You just waive your contingency. Okay. So if you notify the seller that, hey, we're not doing financing anymore, we're going to pay cash, then the seller, if I'm the listing agent, I'm going to say, okay, send me an addendum saying you're waiving your finance contingency. No problem. Right? I don't care. And it's great. It's great for me. I don't have to worry about finance contingency anymore. All right. But you don't even have to do that. Just show up with the money. You either show up with the money or you don't on closing date. If you don't show up with it, I'm keeping your deposit. If you do, awesome. Guys, if you have a seller and you're worried about this, or the buyer backs out the last minute, have your seller do whatever it used to be. Old school, I would say, still show up at the title company. But now, however they were supposed to do it, do not cancel their appointments. Do not anything else. Say, you guys be ready for closing, ready, willing, and able to close at 2:00, like you're supposed to, with a remote online notary or whatever. Let them know you're available to do it. Even if you want to tell them, tell the notary they don't have to come out if the buyer's not ready, but I'm going to be available at 2:00. The seller needs to prove that they were ready to do that to keep the deposit. It helps in any kind of argument they have to keep the deposit, that they still go through with what they were ready. They were ready, willing, and able. Okay. That's just a separate aside. But so you can change. If you change, I'm going to call it downgrade to an FHA or VA from conventional, then you have to have the seller's approval. If you upgrade, I'm going to call it, to a cash, then you're fine. All right, Juan.
To piggyback a little bit on Michelle's question, on the other side, when you are selling a property and you need those funds to move out or to buy another, whatever the case is, I guess you also put it in the additional information. But what is the typical? I mean, nobody wants to buy a house and then have until I find one, because then it could take a month, 2 months, 3 months. Is there a typical wording that says you give me 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, or what have you seen in the past?
It depends on what they're able to do. Unless you're a first-time home buyer, this happens all the time. So get used to it. Unless you've got a first-time home buyer, there's going to be a sell and a buy, right? So typically, or if they've been renting for whatever. But even if they're renting, they're going to be out of a home or whatever. I went before I bought the house I'm in. I got divorced, so I rented for a year and then moved into this house. I gave myself a month to move, but not everybody does that. Not everybody can do that. So a lot of times you do, they're getting out on the 31st and they need to move in on the 1st, right? So sometimes their stuff sits. You guys have all had this, nod your head if you've had somebody who had their stuff in a U-Haul for 2 nights while they stayed in a hotel while they were trying to close their new house, right? It happens. So there's a lot of moving parts in this, and you guys have had people have to stay in hotels for weeks before. You guys have had people beg for post-closing occupancy. You guys have had all kinds of things. That's why people use post-closing occupancy sometimes, so they can stay in their house because they're closing a week apart and they can't close on their new house yet. Or they've had to go stay in a hotel and they've got a sob story and stuff. It happens all the time. So you have to do this. We have one right now where there's they submitted a sale of buyer's property addendum, but it's actually closing like 2 weeks or during the loan approval period. Well, guess what? They don't even need that because that'll kill their loan approval anyway. If they can't have 2 houses at the same time, most people, right? So they're moving out of a house and buying a house for $700,000. They're not approved to have 2 houses at once. And then if they did, this would have to be as a second home, so it would change all their loan stuff anyway. So it's, they don't even really need that because it's during their loan approval period, but because they're closing in 29 days and their loan approval period is 30 days. So that I hope that answers your question. There's lots of moving parts. It happens all the time. You just have to negotiate and make things work. And at some point, there's always a risk. Somebody's deposit a lot of times gets at risk because they're not able to close that day. And a lot of times the listing agent will say, yeah, if I'm going to keep this off the market for another, you were supposed to close on the 1st, you're putting my sellers out now because they're moving somewhere, right? The buyers have to move in, the sellers have to move out. The sellers have another house they're closing on and they can't close on it until they get this money. A lot of times it's a domino thing, and one person getting rejected at the last minute, or you have a seller or a buyer who back out at the last minute, that messes up everybody. And
that's exactly because it's kind of like the chicken and the egg kind of thing, because if they back out at the last minute and you already have the U-Haul set up and you already have the down payment or the rental and everything, now you're going to lose money, time, and everything. So at that time, that's why maybe it's better to close and then get a week afterwards. But then maybe the buyer doesn't want to do that because of the risk of the person not leaving and then having to go through litigation, etc. Is there a point in time between the beginning and the end of the closing that the last week you can say, if you don't close, then one way or the other, we are taking this deposit, sign here type of thing. So at least if they don't close, you
can assume. You don't have to tell anybody that. You can assume that all the time. But I'll tell you this: a lot of people think the buyer is limited. Their damages are limited to whatever their deposit is. It's not the case. A seller can sue you for more than that. If you can get sued for more than that. Buyer, we talk about it a lot. I had this a couple of weeks ago. A seller, one of you guys had a seller back out, or threaten to back out of a deal. You can't. You can be if typically they don't kick you out of your, and I'm not a lawyer, so I don't want to do this, but this is what I've seen. Typically they don't kick you out of the home. They don't make you perform necessarily if it's your primary residence. But if it's not, they can make you specifically perform. They can. Either way they can. They typically don't if you live there full time, but they can. And definitely you're responsible for the buyer's damages. Anything, obviously their inspection and appraisal, but also anything that if they could hire the U-Hauls, if they sold their other house and have to live in a hotel for months now while they close on another house, all that stuff the seller can be liable for. And but the same thing for the buyer. If the buyer made the seller move out, the seller, they went and rented a place, a short-term rental for 3 months while they were going to, look for their next place or whatever. They didn't have somewhere to go. Or if they had to close on a place and now they have a mortgage and a this and a that, that's all the buyer's fault. And if their deposit is $5,000, that's not going to cover it. They can be sued for a lot more than that. Okay, so guys, these are grown-ups. You can't protect them from everything. All you can do is give them all the facts and let them make their decision. These are grown-ups. There's an adult with responsibilities, and there's money on the line. It's just money, but it's money on the line. These are grown-up people. This is a serious job we do. There's a reason you guys make $20,000 at a time. This is a serious job you have. And you have to do a good job and let everybody know what their responsibilities are and their obligations. And they're, you guys are often selling the benefits of all this stuff, but you have to let them know the obligations and responsibilities as well. And this falls on you as a professional. This is why we take classes. This is why you guys are here right now. This is important business. And it's also why you guys make $10, $15, $20,000 at a time, sometimes a lot more, and sometimes a lot less, but it's all important stuff, right? So, I tell you guys this a lot. People work all year for what you guys make on 2 or 3 deals. And it's important that you take it very seriously and that you let your people know all of these things. These words are written by lawyers. FAR-BAR, the Florida Bar and the Florida Association of Realtors put these together, where any monkey can fill them out, but you have to know what it means, right? You're just filling in blanks on a contract. That's a real estate professional can do this, but also you guys have seen this. Somebody will come to you with a problem and you're like, where'd you get that form? Oh, I downloaded it off of Google, right? So, and regular people are using these as well, and they don't understand everything that goes with it. And most of it is, as we go down the contract, most of it is boilerplate. It's 99% written words and the rest of it's little blanks we fill in. So know what you're doing and let your people know that everything they do here is important, including this silly little buyer shall make application for financing within 5 days. How many of you guys even fill that out or pay attention to it or make sure that your buyers actually apply within 5 days? If you're diligent, you're doing your job, then you do, because the seller could drop. If the seller gets a better offer, and you haven't, and they're allowed now, as you guys know, to talk to your lender, and you haven't made an application within 5 days, they kick you out of the deal. And now this house that your buyer's all excited about is gone. All right. Enough doom and gloom about that. Any other questions? I'll go down the form a little bit more. And we'll get to the inspection. You guys, and this is why the inspection is the number one reason I say to use the as is. It protects both sides. You can go back in and do, negotiate, of course, but the inspection, guys, the buyer can get out for any reason. The seller, if the buyer asks for something, the seller can say yes or no. It is very, very fair. On a standard contract, if the buyer asks for something and it's within 1.5% of the, if you leave that part blank, within 1.5% of the value of the home, the seller has to do it. If the seller doesn't like it, doesn't agree with it, then they have to get their own inspector to pay to come out there and argue it. And if the buyer doesn't agree with that inspector, they have to go in together and hire a third one, halvesies, on a third inspection. And that guy is the final say. That guy or gal is the final say. So it's crazy. I think the as is very fair to both sides. The buyer can get out for whatever reason within, this is your job as a listing agent right now too. 7 days is plenty right now, guys. Do not let them leave it blank for 15 days, which is what it says, or even 10 right now. The inspectors are not busy. You guys know this. You put something under contract. If I get something agreed to today, I can have an inspector out there at 8 o'clock tomorrow. It's not, you don't need 7 days anymore, or you don't even need 7 days, but I wouldn't agree to more to 7 days right now if I were a seller. So pay attention on those as well. Yes, Vivian.
Doesn't that inspection period cover getting the report back and negotiating repairs though?
We could have that done tomorrow. Vivian, if I put a contract in on one of your listings today, assuming it's a regular house, I put a contract in on one of your listings, I can have the report back by tomorrow night. We could be negotiated this thing by Friday morning, be done with it. I mean, is there everybody agree with that out there right now?
If the buyer isn't pokey, if the buyer isn't one of those people that take a while to.
Well, but that's your job too. That's your job too. You should have on them and let them know we got to go.
Yeah. I don't drag my feet, but sometimes you want to move it along, and they're sort of,
But I think it's important, Tammy, to say,
things.
I think it's important to make it where it's a benefit to them by saying, guys, if we don't like something on this, you guys like this house, and we don't like something on this report, we need to have the time to negotiate this, and I got to get you guys the best deal I can get you. And we'll get the seller to either repair things to our satisfaction during the inspection period, or agree to a concession of some type so we can get it repaired how we want it repaired. And wink, wink, how many times do your buyers not even repair it? You get $7,000 for repairs and they don't even make 3 of them. 3 of the 10 things they end up fixing because they're really annoying, and they pocket the rest of the money. And we'll fix it later. I think we've all been there and seen that. But that's also on the selling side. I'd rather do that than go try to repair this thing to your satisfaction. And God knows what you find once you get in there repairing stuff, right? So there you go. Vivian, you have another question?
Negative.
Okay. All right. And the rest of this stuff, as we go down, guys, is just boilerplate stuff. If you have any questions on any of this stuff, let me know. Guys, when you're doing a land or commercial and you have statutory warranty deed or specialty deed, do statutory warranty deed. I just want to tell you that because I've seen people ask a lot of questions about that recently. Special warranty deed is not what you need. That's different. I'm not going to get into all that. You can Google it, but statutory warranty deed is what you want. That's just an aside. Doesn't have anything to do with this one. So guys, I have on our YouTube channel, we have, I don't know if you guys remember this. Some of you guys were here for this. When I say here for it, literally in the meeting when I did the new buyer brokerage agreement. I just did like a 3 or 4 minute video on filling that out. I don't remember exactly how many minutes, but I did a listing agreement and I did an as is where you guys were nice and quiet, and I went through it real fast and we recorded them separately. And then we talked about any questions and stuff you guys had. So those are on YouTube. So you don't have to sit through this whole thing. If you ever have questions about how to, if you're a newer agent, you have questions on how to fill out the as is or the listing agreement or the buyer brokerage agreement, those are separately done on our YouTube. And I don't know if they're pinned to the top or not. I don't think they are, but you can search for them by there. She marked them very clearly, and you can search for them on our YouTube channel. If you have any questions about our YouTube channel, you can email Solange or Michelle Machado. Solange is sales at FLA Realty Investments, and Michelle is M Machado at FloridaRealtyInvestments.com, FLARealtyInvestments.com. And then you can find those things there. Do we have any other questions on this?
You know what I had experienced recently? I had a buyer put in an offer, but I always check the appraiser's report. In this instance, it's Lake County Property Appraiser. And I checked to always review the deed. And I found on the deed that there were 2 people involved in the revocable trust, but only when I put those names in as the seller's agent came back and told me that it wasn't necessary for me to put both names on. And I disagreed with her because they're on the deed. And it sounded like the Mr. was wanting to sell the house without the Mrs. knowing, and had the cooperation of their real estate agent. And so I put in the additional terms in the offer that the second seller would have to execute as well. And that's what it took to get the job done. But I thought that was a little shady right from the beginning. We have to look at the deeds and see how they're written, which also brings up the fact that if in the deed it's a life estate, etc., or then we have to. I'm in a situation now where I have a listing and it's a life estate. The gentleman's 97 years old. He's now been moved to an assisted living, and I'm getting the POA from the daughter, but he's still alive and very cognizant, able to make decisions on his own, but it's a life estate. What do I have to gather if he dies in order to have an offer be executed properly if the life estate person dies?
I don't know, but you can't sell a life estate while he's alive. Even if he's incapacitated or whatever, he's still got the right. He might make a recovery. He's got the right to live there as long as he's alive.
No, he wants me to sell his house. He signed all the documents.
But it's not his house. He can't sell it either. You can't sell a house you have a life estate in. I mean, check with an attorney. I'm not an attorney, but I know the whole point of a life estate is I still own it, but I'm going to let Michelle live there until she dies. Michelle can't sell it. It's my house.
Oh, okay. Well, he had a wife, but she's since passed. So he's the only living person. It was his wife. It was a life estate for he and his wife. She has since passed.
Okay. Well, he has to pass too. I might give you and your husband a life estate and a property, but you can't sell it. Somebody else owns it. I mean, that's what a life estate is. Ask an attorney. This might be something different. Maybe the estate of his wife, him and his wife, or a trust or whatever gave him a life estate in it, and it's a trust. Maybe he does have I'm not going to say he doesn't have the right to sell it. Maybe he is the last trustee alive in this trust that they had who gave him a life estate for tax purposes. I don't have any idea. He might have already transferred it to his children or whatever for tax purposes, and they're letting him live there obviously forever. So ask an attorney. This is an attorney question. For sure. But I'm telling you guys, that's what a life estate is I own the property, but I'm going to let Juan live there until he dies because he's very special to me and I don't ever want him to have to move. Maybe he's my dad or whatever, or maybe he's my cousin or my favorite uncle. Doesn't matter. I'm going to let him live there until he dies. But he can never sell it. And also he can't, if he gets ill and he's on life support, until they pull the plug, he can't, nobody can sell it. Nobody can get rid of it.
So it's my listing, so to speak. And if I get an offer,
you need to talk to an attorney.
The family's attorney?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're family attorneys. Actually, well, any attorney can look it up. Any title company can look it up and tell you who can sell it and who can't.
Oh,
But
okay.
I'd rather you talk to his family attorney, obviously.
And what documents do I include in our paperless trail? Do you
Our
need all
paperless
those
pipeline?
documents?
Paperless pipeline, as long as you're doing the right thing, we don't know. I don't need your legal documents. We're gonna assume you got it right.
Okay,
We don't investigate, we don't investigate the right to sell all that stuff. That's what we have title companies from the attorneys for. But
okay,
the title company is the ultimate, guys. This is why we pay title companies $600 for every $100,000 a house sells for. They're insuring it. They're making sure that the paper trail is right, the right owner, or the right seller, or the right buyer. Everybody's legit. That's their job to do that, and they pay insurance to make sure that they're doing that.
okay.
All right. So that's your answer. You need to get. I'd maybe try a title company first, but definitely talk to an attorney if they've got a family attorney. That would be the one to talk to, because I know you can't sell something with a life estate on it. Maybe I could sell it. I could sell it if I'm the owner. I can sell it to somebody else, but they have to honor your life estate. So I believe that's the case. But that's why I'm not an attorney. But
Okay.
I know enough about it to know that.
Now I have one more question, but it's on listing. It's not on the as is.
Right.
I list a house and under the additional terms, I put that the house will not go on the market until, in one particular case, the family, they wanted to vacate and the house had to be restored to a condition where it would be saleable. And that takes a month. Let's say I listed on May 3rd, and it's not ready to go online until June 1st. And then when I put it active, there was a little check on transaction desk saying that it was the first box on the top left, a yes or a no. Was this a delayed, I'm sorry, I
Okay.
forget the word.
Because they want the MLS listing exclusion, but your list
Yes.
date should be, so you can sign papers today. We do this a lot. We talk about this a lot. So in a listing agreement, in this case, you tell me you want to list your house on August 1st, okay? And we're going to sign it today, June 4th. So because you're leaving town or whatever, we will go ahead and sign it though, right? And it's good for me to have it signed now because it guarantees you're listing it. So I'm going to prepare all the documents. I'm going to get it to you today. But that third line of the listing agreement has the dates that this is good for. And I'm going to put from August 1st to January 1st, 6 months. Okay? Or not very good with that. February 1st, 6 months. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay? I'm going to put that on there. I don't have to put it on MLS until that date. It doesn't matter when you sign. We could sign it for next year. Okay? You sign today, but the dates that it starts is that. So when I go and put it in MLS, I'm going to put it in the starting date. When I go to put it in, which will be August 1st, I'm going to put August 1st. Because that's when the
And
date.
then if that's delayed, then you need the exclusion from the MLS, correct?
Yes, you need them to sign the exclusion, which they'll be happy to do.
If that's delayed.
Yeah,
that
they'll be
date's
happy to do
delayed.
that because we're still, look, the flooring's not in yet or whatever. You haven't had a chance to take the pictures because we just got done today or whatever it is. So you can delay it for, 3 or 4 days.
Well, don't
can only
you
delay
still
it
have
1
like
day.
5 days? Don't you still have 5 days after the listing date on the contract?
What it'll let you do, I'm not sure about that. But
Yeah,
MLS will
that's
stop
what
you
I was
from doing it.
Well, I just took the class, so it is 5 days.
Okay.
Once you advertise it publicly, you have 1 day to put it on MLS active.
Right. Okay. So but to answer your question, it doesn't matter what day they sign it. It's only thing that matters is the date and the dates. This listing agreement runs from blank to blank. Those are the dates that matter. So just you sign it today and not put it on until August 1st or August 12th or August 12th of next year. Okay. But that's your date. It doesn't matter when you sign it.
So that'll be what the days on the market will be the day that it goes
Yeah,
on. the
absolutely. This date if they sign it today, June 4th doesn't mean anything to anybody. That's just the date they signed it. It doesn't start yet, right? So if the house burns down before June 1st or before August 1st, doesn't matter. Never had. It wasn't my listing. It's not my listing until then. If they sell it to their neighbor before August 1st, it wasn't my listing until August 1st. So I'm not getting a commission. If they sell it to their neighbor on July 15th, I'm not getting a commission because it wasn't my listing. All right.
So when I put it in the paperless Pike Trail, and I put it in, let's say I signed it, the agreement was signed on May 3rd, and it was ready to go online on June 1st. In paperless pipeline, do I put in June 1st or do I
Yes.
put it May 3rd?
June 1st.
Okay,
That's when the listing starts.
okay.
I mean, it's great that we have it all signed before. That's wonderful. But we do that. Okay.
What confused me is you use the word active in paperless pipeline. And active to me on MLS means it's already on MLS, but active in paperless pipeline just means that it's in the works.
I don't know what I meant by active in paperless pipeline. It doesn't mean anything. Sometimes I just say words.
It's active when I submit the paperwork, but it's listing when it goes active on
Oh, you
MLS.
can put it. Oh, on paperless pipeline. Don't worry. There's a thing for active and all that stuff. You can just put it active in paperless pipeline. It doesn't matter. Nobody's checking that. That's for us.
Okay,
So you just leave it there. It's going to be active until you put it pending.
okay, gotcha.
right.
Thank you.
So guys, I want to reiterate that once you guys put something pending in paperless pipeline, don't touch it again. Don't put closed when it closes. Whatever, we take it from there. We're going to put submitted CDA, or we're going to put submitted to bookkeeping. We're going to do whatever it is after that. Please, once you put it pending, it's great that you put it pending. Please don't touch it after that. Don't mark it closed after it closes. Don't cut home from the closing and be like, closed. Do that on MLS, but you don't need to do it on paperless pipeline. We'll take it from there. Okay. Once we submit the CDA, especially, because now it's in our bookkeeping mix.
Do you need the preliminary closing statement or you
No,
only?
but it's helpful. You know what? Put everything in there you want. It's all that's helpful to have, because a lot of times I'll get questions about a closing. Hey, will you look at this closing? It was supposed to close here and blah, 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 blah. And now my buyer is complaining because of this fee or that fee or whatever it is. I get these all the time. I need, send me the closing statement. Well, it's not closed yet. Send me the preliminary HUD. Okay, let me find it. Just go ahead and put everything in there. Plus, if you spill your coffee on your computer, we'll have it. Okay, we'll have it in our system for the next, we keep it for 5 to 7 years, whatever the law is. 7 years, I think we keep it for. I think the law is 5, but we keep it for 7. So you can look on there.
Okay.
All right. So we back up our paperless pipeline every month. Everything's backed up and it's also in the cloud. So if we stop using paperless pipeline and we find a better system next week, we'll still have all those documents stored. Okay. So if you ever need them for anything, sometimes you will. And you guys know you've lost access to your email before, or you've lost your motherboard on your computer before, or something like that, then you'll always have backup. So go ahead and put anything you want in there. Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments? All right, guys, it has been a pleasure talking to you guys all today. Thank you for coming. Vivian.
Yes, sir. I have a situation that I did not anticipate. As I told you, I'll be selling my house in the next month or so. And I've reached out to 4 estate sale companies that have done presentations at real estate events over the years. Not one of them is responding favorably. So I posted it on the FRI agent page this morning. If anybody has an estate sale company, they can get me a number to, that would be delightful. I can't possibly sell all this stuff myself.
Okay. Wonderful. If anybody can help with that, that would be great.
I need that information when you get it, Viviana. You could send that over to me.
And put it on the FB page, Facebook page. If you don't mind. All right. Thanks, Viv. All right, guys. Thank you very much for coming. I enjoyed seeing you guys all from would-be sunny Tampa, but it's rainy Tampa. Have a great day. Bye, everybody.